Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel, Women of Motorsports. Today we have a lovely guest with us, Cassidy Charette.
Hi, I'm Cassidy. I am an F1 content creator over on CCF1. I also work as a marketing consultant and as a freelance press officer. So that's a bit about me.
What does your job exactly mean for those who don't understand?
So as a marketing consultant, I work for a company that, has business across Canada. And I was brought onto the team to kind of serve as a consultant for the Quebec region. So I'm kind of tasked with taking on the whole province and developing marketing strategies and plans to help people kind of like adopt our services and sign on to our program. Before that, I worked as a media analyst for about 2.5 years. So I was working directly with clients to kind of give them a bit of a rundown on their communication strategies, what was working, what wasn't. And it was fun because I actually got to work with a lot of automotive clients. So that was kind of like a little tiny little taste of the industry. But I've since moved on from that job and focusing a little bit more on like large scale projects, which is fun.
Nice.
Wow. That's quite a lot. So how did that kind of lead you to getting into F1?
I've been an F1 fan my whole life. I got an internship at the Canadian Grand Prix in 2018. It was only for a week. A lot of people still seem to think I worked there. I do not. I very much wish I worked there full time. But yeah, it was a 1-week internship for race week on the media team. So helping in terms of the FIA press conferences, having a direct liaison with journalists and helping them with accreditation and any needs they may have, getting to assist in the media pen, which was really fun. It also gave me a lot of freedom to go like run around with my camera and just take photos of anything I wanted. So it was a really cool experience. And I was kind of working directly with the director of communications for the Grand Prix. And it just really opened my eyes to like, wow, there are a lot more opportunities in my field of marketing and communications in motorsport. It's just something that I had never been opened up to before. So that was kind of my first introduction of like, wow, I feel really at home here. I like being on the move all the time. I like being on my feet. So then that was kind of my moment that I was like, okay, I really want to pursue this as a full-time thing, and still working on it, but it's I've gotten a lot closer in recent years, which has been really nice.
That sounds honestly incredible. But how exactly did you get into it in the beginning? How maybe you being a fan turned into you getting a job within motorsports?
Yeah, so I've basically been a fan since day one. My parents watched it, so I was born, and then they sat me in front of the TV, and I was hooked from there. It's always funny because I always say like Spa is my favorite track because of when it lined up. It was literally I was born, and then 3 days later was the 1996 Spa Grand Prix. So I'm like, that's a very fortunate turn of events that it later turned into my favorite track. So I've always been around motorsport. I went to the Grand Prix a lot as a kid. And then it was in 2017, I had a mutual friend that like, we'd see each other from time to time, but we weren't like super close or anything. And then all of a sudden he was posting like these surreal shots from the Grand Prix. And I was like, oh my God, where were you sitting in the grandstands to get these? And he's like, oh no, like I wasn't in the grandstands. I was actually working at the event. And I was like, you can do that? You what? So I touched base with him. He's like, yeah, I'll introduce you to the person that hired me, which was the director. So she got in touch with me after he sent over my resume to her. And I had a phone interview with her. And then she asked me to come into the office, and she's like, oh yeah, you already have the job. I just wanted to make sure that you were real, because over the phone, like your knowledge and interest in motorsport is like not that common. So I wanted to make sure you're like a legitimate person. So that was really fun. She's an absolutely amazing person, and so hardworking. So it was really fun to be able to partner alongside a fellow woman, like having so many duties. Oh my God, she's one of the busiest people I've ever met in my life. So cool to see, women doing such amazing jobs in the paddock.
Awesome. So speaking of kind of having that support and that inspiration, who is someone who is like a big inspiration for you?
I'd say my biggest inspiration is Anne Bradshaw. I had the pleasure of interviewing her around this time last year, and she was one of the first female press officers in F1. And she's worked with, big teams, big names in the sport, and like she just has an absolute legacy. And I think what I love so much about her is that she's constantly had to adapt, going from old school press officer style of typing out the press releases and like printing them off and running them to all the journalists in the paddock, to then like having to adopt social media, digital strategy, digital presence and stuff. Like she's constantly evolving, and it's just so inspirational to see someone that has really been able to pave a way for herself and fellow women. She's so supportive of new people in the industry, and she's just always willing to give people a chance. And I think that's really, really admirable, because when you work in sports, and especially motorsport, it's so competitive that I find I've had encounters where people can be a little bit cold and don't really want to reveal all their secrets, but she hasn't been that way at all. Every single person I've ever spoken to that has met her, had the pleasure of working alongside her, I've just said she's so warm and inviting, and like it's just really nice to see someone so successful still champion the next generation and the one after that to come into the sport and really make a name for themselves as well. So I think she's fantastic. If I even have half of the success that she's had in her career, I think that's job well done.
What is the favorite thing or tip that she told you?
One thing that she told me was to just never say no to yourself. And that's something that I really take to heart. She's like, she's had moments in her career where it felt a little bit scary, wasn't sure if she was cut out for it, but you don't know if you don't try. So, it's hard sometimes not to doubt yourself. I think we're intrinsically inclined to think like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. And I'm a really big perfectionist. So I tend to not want to do something unless I know I'll succeed at it. But, she said some of the best people in the sport, or the most recognized people in the sport, they just kind of dive in head first and figure it out later. So that's something that I try to keep in mind, because even if you get a no or it's a failure, at least you tried, and something good can still come out of that. So that's something that I've really tried applying into my life in the past year, and just really not being afraid to put yourself out there.
Are there double standards, do you think, that are held between male media personnel and then female media personnel, and kind of experiences that you've had in that sort of situation?
It's difficult. I've had some instances where it's not necessarily that I felt like I wasn't taken as seriously, but it's more just sometimes the little remarks that get passed around here and there. And I find it's more typical from an older generation standpoint. So I've had journalists that have made like really, really weird, borderline sexist remarks to me. And I don't even know if they knew they were doing it. I think with the younger generation, everyone is just kind of like, well, if you're in the sport, it's because you belong here. We don't care what you look like. We don't care what sex or gender you are. We don't care what your, like alignment is. If you can do the job, you can do the job. So I do think that it's gotten a lot better over the years. I would say, though, that in terms of me reaching out to ask for advice or just asking to have a chat with someone, let's grab a virtual coffee and get to know each other, women have been a lot more receptive. Women are much more likely, at least in my experience, to say yes and give you the time of day. Whereas a lot of times if I have reached out to prominent men in the industry, I either get left on red or it's, I'm sorry, I'm too busy. So I don't really know if that's like a reflection of, what types of roles people serve, because I also have had conversations with absolutely lovely men. Earlier this season, I had the opportunity to interview Daniel Ricciardo's trainer, Michael Italiano, and he like immediately was like, yeah, sign me up, let's do it. Like, I'm down. And we chatted for over an hour. So like, you have people that are willing to give you the time of day, but I just find that women are a lot more likely to kind of give up their industry tips and secrets. And the men kind of, they'll just kind of say they're too busy a lot of times. I think sometimes we're more prone to think, well, there's, space for everyone. You can kind of pave your own way. You can make your career into what you want. Whereas there's some people that think like, oh no, you're coming directly for me. And I'm like, no, not the case at all. I don't want to replace you. I just want the stepping stones to get there and, you know, merit the role. I want to be there on merit because I deserve to be there. So
where do you wish to see yourself in the future, like 5-10 years into the future?
Yeah, my ultimate goal is to eventually be a press officer with the Formula One team. So I honestly have no preference which team it is. Just I'm here, guys. So that would be my absolute end goal. But I think in the meantime, like a more short-term objective for me would be to be able to move abroad to England to start to really focus a lot more on getting into the industry, because there's just not that many opportunities here in Canada. And I don't want to limit myself, because it's extremely rare that someone will get their first big break in F1. Like that just doesn't really happen. So I'm really open to working in whatever series. Like I'm super interested by Extreme E. I like really want to follow that more closely. It just seems like it's such a weird, like fresh, like perspective on motorsport. So I'd love to do that. I'm really hoping to attend some IndyCar races this year, hoping to go to Formula E as well. Like I would do pretty much anything. You know, like my industry is comms and marketing. So I would be happy to do pretty much anything in that field in motorsport in the meantime. But I would say like ultimate goal, whether that happens in 5, 10, 15 years, I don't really care. I will find myself into a Formula One team one day.
We're going to kind of switch it over to your YouTube channel, CCF1. So you have a lot of your opinions, and I feel like we agree with like all of them. But you were talking earlier about how people in the comments might disagree. Do you think that's more of sort of like a personal opinion, or is it, do you think maybe because you are a female and they don't really see those opinions as much?
Yeah, that's something where I'm not shy to say. I definitely do think a lot of it comes down to me being a woman, because like, as you guys know, I run my channel with my boyfriend, Chris. We don't publish something unless we both agree on it. I think in a lot of cases, like we're always going to be respectful. We try in certain cases to be as neutral as possible, because we know like we both have a bias, and that's obviously going to affect how we see the sport, our opinions on, you know, certain outcomes in the sport. So we try to keep it as like objective as possible. But yeah, there's going to be some times where, you know, no, I firmly believe in what I'm speaking out about. So it'll be very interesting sometimes when we do videos together, and like we have to sign off on everything we publish. If there's a take where we say something and think, oof, that might have been a little bit too passive aggressive, we refilm. And, you know, like everything is edited, filmed exactly how we want it. We want to be proud of the work that we put out there. So it'll be interesting when we then do that and get a comment like, oh, she has no idea what she's talking about. I'm like, well, we both made the same point in the same video that we run together on our collective channel. So I have had a lot more comments than he has that are targeted more at like, you know, she doesn't know what she's talking about. Why does her opinion matter? I mean, I've had people call me a snowflake, like, and I'm like, okay, like shoo little gatekeeper, don't care. It used to affect me a lot more when we started out. Now I'm just like, it's honestly comical, because I just view it as like gatekeepers are always going to be more harmful to Formula One and motorsport in general than any female fan, than any casual fan, than any like DTS stan. I don't care how you got into the sport or where you come from. If you're passionate, then you're passionate. That's all that matters. So I think I'm a lot better at like ignoring them or firing back when I need to. But yeah, it definitely will be funny at times when we post a video and I'm like, why are they mad at me? Like we both said the same stuff. So that has been very funny. I get it sometimes on my TikTok too, but a little bit less, because I think like people are very like, okay, she is the woman. Like that's what you're gonna get. Whereas when it's like the two of us, I'm like, how are you mad at only one half of us when we both agree on the same point? Doesn't make sense to me, but to me, I'm just like, you're foolish and you're ultimately not brave enough to be doing what we're out here doing. You know, a lot of the people that comment and have negative opinions, you would never find them filming, editing, publishing their own creative content for the world to see. It takes a lot of guts to put yourself out there on the internet. And yeah, sometimes that comes with negative opinions. But at the end of the day, like, you have to be proud of yourself and thinking like, I'm doing something that a lot of people will never have the guts to do. So I can find satisfaction in that.
And that's a great mindset to have. Always kind of keeping them out, staying positive, and just, yeah, the fact that you are putting your opinion out there is just saying that they don't have the guts to do it. And here you are, and you're just sharing more knowledge and really helping other fans and other female and other women and girls see that it is okay and totally valid to be a woman in motorsport.
Yep. And I think part of that also helps that, by having the courage to do that, I've met a lot of my now best friends by fellow content creators. Like, some of my best friends in life also have their own channels. I've never met them. They live in the UK, or they live in South Africa, or they live in Scotland. But we all talk all the time because we found this collective interest, and everyone knows the struggle of how unbelievably time consuming it could be to come up with a video concept and script write and edit and film and do the whole social media around it. So it's been really rewarding too, knowing that, like, I have a lot of other female friends that go through the same thing that I do.
If you were a driver in Formula One and would have to pick a number, which number would you choose and why?
So I have thought of this. I think I would be number 53. And that is because on the grid right now, Seb and Daniel are my favorites. So I can't steal their numbers. So I would just combine them together. 5 has been my lucky number since I was a kid. When I played sports, I always wanted to be jersey number 5, or like if I would have a really good result, it's because I was like starting 5th that day or something like that. So I have a very strong attachment to the number 5. And then my attachment to the number 3 is like purely because of Daniel. But yes, I would just combine the best of both worlds together. So 53.
If you got the chance to spend the day with a current or former Formula One driver, dead or alive, who would it be and why? And what would you do?
That's so hard because there's so many that I want to spend a day with. Like, I would kill to be able to spend a day with some of these guys. I'd say, like, I'm gonna pick one present and one former because I cannot choose between the. Technically, there's like 3 in contention in my mind right now. But if I had to pick a present one, it would be Daniel, without a doubt. And what I would do is I would love to just sit down with him and compare playlists, because him and I have a very similar sense of music. And I would love to be like, hey, I'm going to introduce you to this band. You're going to love them. I promise you. And just spend the whole day talking about music. I've seen so many interviews with him talking about motorsport and his whole path. I'm like, nah, we go talk about other hobbies. Have a day off. So I think that'd be really fun. And then I would love to go back and meet Gilles Villeneuve, just because, I think he's someone that he would have won many world championships if obviously things played out differently. And I've just always heard and read in interviews that he had a killer instinct, but was also one of the nicest people that you can meet in the paddock and gave everyone the time of day. So I would love to just go back, spend a day with him, learn a little bit more about his craft, and really just see what he was like. And obviously we don't have that many Canadian F1 drivers. So it'd be really nice to go back and meet like the OG, like the one that really put the Quebec region on the map worldwide. So also I think it was really cool that he used to race snowmobiles. I want to know more about that. Like, that's so peak Canadian that I'm like, I need to know more about this. So that would be present, Daniel; past, Gilles.
Do you have a message or any advice for anyone that would be watching this video?
My main piece of advice would be to just put yourself out there. If you want to get into content creation or you're thinking about getting into the industry, I would say your main thing is just do whatever you can. You don't need to have like the best equipment or the best setup. Just do whatever you can to portray your personality, show that you're creative, show that you're dedicated. Keep a healthy upload schedule if you're going to be on YouTube, because it matters. And then in terms of professional side of things, networking is really going to be your best friend, because a lot of it comes down to who you know. making friends in different areas, really expanding your horizons, you're going to get a lot of no's. It's just part of it. But don't be too scared of the no's that it ends up preventing you from reaching out. I mean, I've sent so many emails, so many LinkedIn connections, so many DMs, and yeah, a lot of them have been unanswered or have been no, sorry, I don't have time. But the ones that have answered me have given me more than enough advice for me to be able to keep pushing for those next steps and continuously meeting new people, because yeah, you might get 1,000 no's, but eventually one person will say yes to you, and that one yes will make all the difference. So never be too afraid of reaching out. And if anything, it's just gonna build up your confidence in yourself to keep pushing. Like, you just really can't give up. I know it sounds stereotypical, but you really just can't get knocked down by these things. Being a friendly personality, it does get you a long way. So yeah, just believe in yourself. I know it sounds so cheesy, but honestly, if you don't keep persevering, then that's the end of the road. You just got to keep pushing. So, and make friends. Connections are huge. Connections are very, very huge. I think that has honestly been the most important learning lesson for me. It's a lot of it comes down to having people willing to vouch for you. So build up that network.
Well, thank you so much, Cassidy, for joining us. It's been a pleasure and so lovely talking to you. I wish you the best of luck going forward. And everyone, please, who's watching this, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. And please also check out Cassidy's channels as well.